Welcome to this presentation of the Rotary Club of North Bethesda, Maryland, USA. Our club was established in 1974. We meet every Friday morning at 7:45 a.m., and we often invite guest speakers to give presentations on all kinds of interesting subjects. Please contact us through our website at nbrotary.org. And thanks for watching.
Our presentation today is from Lasse Syversen, a member of our club. Lasse joined the North Bethesda Rotary in 1998 and has been a strong supporter of all club activities ever since. He served in a variety of club positions, including president in 2003 and most recently as secretary. He has been involved in the international business community for more than 40 years and has a unique perspective on world affairs. His talk is on the overall topic of change management.
So, being overseas, reading Norwegian and European news and listening to what's going on over here, having my business in international trade, and also having a diploma in change management, I thought I will give you a different view of what's going on in international climate today and in the geopolitical situation. Everything under the umbrella of international climate. I don't have any political view. So if you think I take a political view, that's not what I'm doing. I try to look at it from a change management point of view today. So, to my opinion, many changes going on, and what we read and what we listen to is necessary, but the way it is implemented is the problem. If you want to change something, you really need to do it properly. And if I should rate on a scale between 0 and 10, the American implementation, I will give it a 2, or maybe even a -2. And the reason is that successful change needs to be implemented in a proper way. You need to create some kind of an urgency. You need to have a good story. You need to explain all the details. You need to obtain some kind of acceptance if it's possible. And then you go into a long process. Change management process may take between 1 and 10 years, depending on how complex it is. And if you try to bypass the process, you will get backfire. And exactly what I see today in the relationship between America and other countries is the backfire. And I think it's because of implementation, a lack of implementation. Did any of you listen to the speeches at the World Economic Forum in Davos in Switzerland last week? Listen to the speakers there. The American president was there, the Canadian prime minister, the French president, all the leaders in Europe. I counted 702 flights, private flights, in Switzerland that week. And they're talking about climate changes as well, so maybe they should find another way to travel. Anyway, it was very interesting. It was basically a good place to get a global picture of what's going on. And if you paid attention, the week before, we really had international crisis between the relationship between the countries. And I will get back to that a little bit later. we see also after the Davos meeting that long time relationship and friendship, coming back to friendship, being exchanged with some of the leaders taking, I will say, basically inexperienced conclusion and leaning more toward China and India and previously less friendly trade partners. Very interesting to see how that backfire really played out that week. So I have listed a few topics: tariffs, currency, transatlantic relationship, new trade routes, and the Arctic security and Greenland. And we could add to that list. We could make that list very, very long. We could add China, Russia, Ukraine, Canada, Great Britain, France, Denmark, Middle East. The list could go on. But I had to focus on a few things. So let me start with the Arctic security. After some dramatic weeks after America stated that they need Greenland and may use forces, and later threatened some of the countries who took action and went to Greenland, the Davos meeting really cooled down the tension when President Trump stated that the US will not use armed forces and we may not apply the tariffs. And I don't know, but I have a feeling that it had been some kind of diplomacy going on in the back rooms before the speech was given. Only one person in the room, to my opinion, had enough information to stay calm, and that was the Secretary General of NATO. He probably had been through a change management process and knew what was going on. The rest of the leaders basically panicked and was very relieved when President Trump gave his speech. And even the Prime Minister of Denmark stating a couple of days ago that Europe and the US should cooperate to protect the Arctic. And that's very different from what she said a couple of weeks before. Very interesting to see how this play out. We have seen a dramatic change in international climate over the last few months, and it could be a consequence for decades to come. That's the problem with bad implementation, is that it can take a long time to correct. And we already seen the Prime Minister of Canada getting a lot of credit for his speech and coming back from China. And a couple of days ago, the British Prime Minister went to China and stated that cooperation with China is important for their own security. And I think you all have your opinion about that. But the corporate world and my world in international trade, we need stability and trust to protect long-term investment. In the last month, we have been very concerned about the weakening of US dollars. It may be that America wants to weaken the dollar, but for international, it has been a major concern. Also, the tension and the trust has led some European investors to try to find alternative to investment in the United States. And it's all a new climate. So let me focus on the Arctic security in Greenland, because I think that is something we could discuss further If we look at the map, Mother Earth has protected us for as long as we have existed with a solid ice on the North Atlantic. If you look at this map, you see how close we all are, but we had the ice to protect us and separate us. Russia, Canada, all the other countries, and our small Norwegian countries are down here, and we are sitting, where are we? We are not on this map.
At the
But
bottom.
Down at the bottom.
we probably further down. Are we here?
At the bottom.
No, we are further down here. But anyway, so this is how we have been managing for many, many years, and even we have seen some new shipping routes. But you can see the Russian border. The Russian border is all the way here. This is the Russian border, and they have been isolated by the ice, but it has started melting. So now we have some routes going up here, and this is Alaska up here, and very close when the ice goes. But Russia is now charging us a protection fee for shipping routes going this way. So it's very few commercial ships going this way today. But if the ice goes away, we have a completely different picture. And we are down here. Here we are. Here we are. And here is Sweden, Klaus. Here is Sweden. Sweden is here. Finland is here. Norway is here. And you see that the new ocean is basically opening up. And we have Russia and China on one side. We have Canada and US on the other side. Russia has invested now in a lot of icebreakers. China has done the same thing. US is behind on that investment. We have a program, but it hasn't been implemented properly yet. But look at Greenland. Greenland is basically our new protection. Here we have Greenland. And all the threat from the east to the west will have to go over Greenland. So this is why Greenland is so important. And the European countries have been sleeping for a long time. I will say they have been sleeping since the Second World War because US have taken care of them. Now, when they get responsibility to take care of themselves, they are waking up. And over the last couple of weeks, most of the leaders in Europe has been visiting Greenland. I don't know why they have been visiting Greenland. It's probably to show up. But US used to have 22 locations in Greenland, and today we only have one. So this is basically one of the reasons for the international geopolitical situation. And Russia, China has a special interest in this area, and it will shorten the shipping lines going towards the Atlantic. And you can see that investment in Alaska, investment in China, and north of Norway, very important to position themselves. And here we have a country called Canada, which is basically very close to this tension. And their strategic direction may be interesting to follow based on the speech he gave in Davos. So I think that the key thing now will be at least for the investors, Nick, that look at long-term investment and don't panic. I think we need unity and we need trust in international climate, and it may take a lot of effort to establish that. So that was basically my 3 minutes, and
Question?
I think we can open up for the room to discuss it.
So, yeah, I had a question, Lasse. I'm looking at your slide here. It says unity and trust, but I did listen to parts of Trump's speech, and they seem to insult everybody in the room, including Canada and all the other countries. And how do you do that? I mean, what kind of a change management is that? I mean, don't you want to be friends?
That's why I gave him a rating of 2 or -2.
Yeah, it was not.
If I should rate someone high today, the winner is going to be China, because China is really benefiting from this situation. They are really taking advantage, and the way they implement, I will not say it's perfect because it's not perfect, but they are sneaking in everywhere without getting any attention.
Maybe what Trump is trying to do is wake everybody up on our side.
On our side.
I started saying that, Steve, that I think many of the changes and many of the things are good, but you need to implement it properly. So let me take an example. If I turn up on your doorstep and say, I need your car, and I have a gun in my hand, I will probably not get a car. But if I started the conversation with saying that I need your car because my wife is pregnant and she needs to get to the hospital, she may even drive you over there.
Really good point.
Good point. And if you can't make up your mind if it's Greenland or Iceland, then there's something wrong.
I feel like unity and trust also are, things that are based on stability and goodwill, building better friendships, those types of things, making sure it's beneficial for all concerned. And I'm not sure that the current, the current climate is necessary, would pass the Rotary test, I guess is what I would say.
The four-way test is a good example of how you can do change management. But the problem is with stability is that if you need to change, you can't have stability. You need to bring up an urgency. You need to bring up some kind of a story, but you need to do it slowly because you can't force things to happen quickly. Change management is about time and how you implement.
Well,
so
that's the stability I'm talking
that's
about.
why you get that backfire.
Yeah, and the stability I'm talking about is just not altering one view and then back and forth and back and forth. It's having a platform and an actual strategy rather than sort of what comes to mind.
Stability and predictability is essential to world trade and good relations among countries. And I think we can all agree that the entire international system is being disrupted in a big way, and in some ways that are not really noticed by people who are not paying close attention. For example, are you aware that we are at war at this time? By international law standards, we are at war with Iran. How so? We have essentially destroyed the Iranian currency. The Secretary of the Treasury, Bessent, told us last year what would be the policy of the United States vis-a-vis Iran. And he said, and you should remember that he was the manager of a hedge fund owned by George Soros. What is George Soros famous for? For having collapsed the British pound many years ago and doing much the same thing. I think it was to the Filipino currency. We have as Treasury Secretary an expert in how to ruin the currency of other countries. Now, if you deprive a country of its ability to sell things, buy things, pay their bills, you are at war with it according to international standards. And you may not know this, but all of the military dispositions of the US at this time point toward open war again with Iran. And if that should actually happen, of course, we're doing this at the behest of our so-called best ally in the Middle East. If that were to happen, it would have enormous consequences for an international system that is already fracturing. The US, through its various policies of discrimination, canceling the assets of foreign governments and so on, it has completely disrupted the international scheme for payments, the SWIFT, for example. Some of you know what that is. So we are deliberately making difficulties for everybody. No wonder that everybody is looking around for alternatives to doing business in dollars. So what I'm saying is that if you feel that international relations are being disrupted, wait until we get another attack on Iran, and see the ramifications, not just in the Middle East, but in Russia, China. China is completely dependent on oil exports from the Middle East, not least from Iran. This is a tinderbox, and you have at the helm a person who is, it seems, disdainful of diplomacy and completely uninterested in a kind of international law that has been integrated into the American constitutional system. The UN has certain requirements for membership, and one is you cannot act the way the US is now acting. So we have, instead of diplomacy, negotiation, respectful relations, you have almost a kind of, I'm hesitant to use the word, but it comes to mind more and more, a kind of thuggery. The US throwing its weight around and performing suicidal acts. We are damaged by it.
It's happening domestically also. It's interesting. We had an act of war with Venezuela also by blockading their ships.
Also illegal.
Act of war.
By UN international law standards, that was positively illegal. Now, the Europeans should have protested, but they started protesting only when their own immediate interests seemed to be threatened over Greenland. By the way, the US has always had full access to Greenland. We've had as many as 20 bases, and there's been nothing stopping the US from within NATO to put up such protections as were deemed necessary.
They've also explicitly said that they would give us mineral rights. So there's no.
Yeah, and when you talk about the minerals, Nick, we do have most of the minerals already in Alaska.
Yeah, and
So,
Greenland said they
but
would give us mineral rights anyway. They said, "Come on in, you want the mineral
but
rights."
because of the melting ice, it will probably be easier access to some of them. So that may be interesting. But I think, Klaus, the right of Greenland goes back to 51. I think that's when the Greenland agreement was set, and U.S. have the right to establish the military forces there. So, yeah, we do have. And the Prime Minister of Denmark stated 2 days ago that, and that was after a number of meetings with the NATO Secretary General and the US, that she stated that we need to work together and protect the Arctic. The Secretary General of NATO has been very much criticized by all the European countries for not being more active in the conflict about Greenland. But the reason is that he has a very difficult balance between US and Europe, because US is still the major supporter of NATO, and Europe cannot stay on their own. They cannot stay on their own today, and probably not in the near future.
Have you noticed this? That the Europeans, who are very upset by belligerent US behavior, have, through Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, chimed in on American-Israeli plans to go after Iran. Can you believe that? They are propagating a war or the continuation of an already simmering war, so that the tensions here are all over the place and threatening completely the order or the international order that has been very carefully built up over decades and decades.
Yeah, I feel
That
like
goes
NATO.
back to the Second World War.
Yeah, I feel like
What is
NATO.
happening with Cuba?
Well, we don't like their government, so you know what's possible there.
Well, there's also they depend on Venezuela for a lot, so that could be tricky. Although I'm not sure the regime is effectively changed in Venezuela. So
You know, the United Nations was started in order to promote peace, to make war an unlikely outcome, and specifically, it was founded to guarantee or to protect the smaller states from belligerent big countries. Big countries were going to be encouraged to put some restraints on themselves. But it seems that the US is willing these days to use whatever clout it has to simply get its will and never mind what others may think about it.
Oh,
yeah,
And the other part of this is if we ever have another 9/11, we're going to have a tough time getting allies because of the way the United States is acting.
yeah.
Denmark's not going to be
That's something that worries me about my children and their children, my grandchildren, and this isn't going to resolve itself in our generation, let alone it's only going to get worse.
I don't know that it will have. I think it's going to have long-term effects in that they know that if we elect, irrationally here in the United States, it can be very bad. But I think we can. I think that once an administration changes, we could get back to some more international norms. But if we do take Greenland, we sanction China to take Taiwan. We have effectively licensed Russia to take the rest of Ukraine. It would be very bad. But it's 8:30, everybody. We as Rotarians believe in world peace. So why don't we have an exercise? Reach out to a Rotarian and see if they can have a lunch or a dinner this week. Just to see if you can find anybody in our club or in another club, if you happen to be local. Try to have a meal with one of our members or new members if you can.
Bring your leaflets.
That's true. Yes.
Make a new friend.
Yes. So let's.
By the way, we were able to record the Lasse's very interesting talk. So
that was
I will
wonderful.
have that. It turns out it's the club computer has to be turned on, and I was using my own computer this morning.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's the hosting. Yeah.
Yeah, the little.
But stay united. Stay united.
Yeah, and we're united as Rotarians. And Lasse, thank you for your intellectual and wonderful presentation. Club, you make the club so much better, man. It was wonderful. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
All right, folks. We're live next week, Pooks Hill, 7:30 Friday. So we'll see you then. If you can find a time to have a meal or a cocktail or something with the Rotarian, try to do it this week. So goodbye, everybody. Have a great day.
Everybody. Be well.
Be well.
Bye. Bye.